Mohammad Yunus, as we can see, is a representative or is a puppet of US deep state, and he has acted like one.
In your research, what did you find out about the importance of the Saint Martin Island and why is it that the Americans want it?
It gives the Americans a sort of a gateway to Myanmar. And why Myanmar? Because it wants to control Myanmar, it wants to break up Myanmar. It's spontaneous students' reaction. Spontaneous students' revolutions don't suddenly gain that much of critical mass in the way and in such short a time and in the way that it has happened. There was a critical phone call from India which says you have to fight this battle some other day. Today, if you are there, you will not be able to fight the battle. Awami League will be gone. Your father's legacy will be gone. There will be nothing less left to fight about.
You think there may be another revolution, but right now, you think there will be elections in February 2026? The Awami League, Sheikh Hasina and her party, they're completely banned.
And India has to play a huge role in this, be at the forefront of insisting, as we have been saying, but we should be more forceful in saying it and build up world opinion, that elections have to be free, fair.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a special edition of Chakravyuh. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We are talking about the situation in Bangladesh where Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death in absentia. What does this mean for Bangladesh, for the politics of Bangladesh and elections that are likely to be held sometimes in February 2026? To talk about the revolution, as some call it, radical Islamists taking over as others insist. I have with me on the Chakravyuh Podcast Jaideep Mazumdar, author, analyst, someone who keeps a hawk eye on developments in the region. And Jaideep, congratulations, you've just written Inshallah Bangladesh, a book on the situation, on the unfinished revolution of Bangladesh. But let's begin by asking, why is it an unfinished revolution?
Because the revolution had an aim. I mean, that is not just the ouster of the Sheikh Hasina regime, but also bringing back the restoring. The unstated aim was initially restoring law and order and doing away with corruption and misgovernance and all that. Now nothing of that is there. Now the whole thing has swiveled on to what was the original plan of the people behind the scenes, the masters who were, the students were merely puppets. The puppeteers always wanted the Jamaat to come to power in order to needle India and pose as a security threat to.
So, who are the puppeteers? Are you, in your book, making the point that this isn't a spontaneous students' movement? This is actually an orchestrated regime change operation?
Absolutely, because how the idea of the book, in fact, was started like the genesis was. Why did it happen suddenly? This started off as something to do with quotas, anti-discrimination and all. So, and the government had nothing. The government said that we are with the students, we are with the protesters, and we will concede their demands eventually. Then it became a remove Sheikh Hasina. It talked about toppling the government, etc. Why did it suddenly happen? And while we were investigating, talking to a lot of people across the board, talking to both Awami League, the army, the security establishment, and the other parties, we realized that it was a regime change operation, absolutely. One is the deep state, America, and there's no doubt that the deep state is involved, the US deep state is involved in that.
On what basis are you saying the US deep state is involved in a regime change operation in Bangladesh, and why?
Mohammad Yunus, as we can see, is a representative or is a puppet of the US deep state, and he has acted like one. He's acting like one, and will go on acting like one. That is one. Also, the Pakistani establishment, and we see now that Bangladesh has gravitated very firmly towards Pakistan. They've set up, established very close military links and other links as well, political links, etc. So that Pakistan's ISI was another puppeteer, if I were to say so. The US deep state also, after that, we have seen how they wanted, which Sheikh Hasina herself said, that they want St. Martin's Island. And now we see that the present regime is quite willing to hand over St. Martin's Island to the US, and the US has stepped up its interests in
In
Bangladesh.
your research, what did you find out about the importance of the Saint Martin Island, and why is it that the Americans want it?
It gives the Americans a sort of a gateway to Myanmar. And why Myanmar? Because it wants to control Myanmar. It wants to break up Myanmar. It thinks that Myanmar is a Chinese client state. To a large extent, it is, because China controls not only the UNTA but also the ethnic armed organizations, many of them who act on China's behest. So, in order to counter China in a key Southeast Asian state, they want a gateway to Myanmar. Not just that. What is disconcerting and very of great concern for India is St. Martin's Island. If it becomes a US base, it also is very close to the northeast, and the parts of the northeast which are furthest away from India, like Tripura, Mizoram, etc., absolute extreme east of the
Or
country,
Manipur, for example,
and
where they've
Manipur.
tried to foment trouble anyways in the past.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So,
So-
St. Martin's Island is that way very important.
Okay. So this wasn't a spontaneous students' revolution. The students were actually at the forefront. But was it the Jamaat? Was it the Hizb ut-Tahrir? What were the organizations behind the scenes, the radical Islamists, and are they now firmly in control of Bangladesh in your opinion?
Absolutely. The Jamaat, the Hizb ut-Tahrir, Mahfouz Islam is one of the key persons in the government. He had to resign later on. That's a different matter. But as Yunus himself said, there were very many players behind this revolution. Had it been a spontaneous students' revolution, it wouldn't have evolved into what it is today. It would have been something entirely different, perhaps. So it is something that the US deep state. It was never a spontaneous students' reaction. Spontaneous students' revolutions don't suddenly gain that much of critical mass in the way and in such short a time and in the way that it has happened. One point that I forgot to mention is there was a large-scale induction of sophisticated weapons during the revolution, and these weapons were used to kill the police, and to kill even some of the students, who were participating in the revolution, the foot soldiers. They became they were sacrificed for the cause of the greater revolution, if I were to say so.
Which is very alarming. The manner in which we saw images that the Muhammad Yunus tries to deny policemen who were hung upside down from bridges, stripped, beaten, minority women, Hindu homes, temples targeted, Buddhists, other minorities targeted. But Muhammad Yunus says that's fake news.
Absolutely. He has kept on saying that, and I don't know how logically he can say that it's all fake news. Either fake news, or he says that when there's too much of evidence, which has to be acknowledged, then he says, oh, these are supporters of the Awami League, and that's why they have been targeted. It's nothing to do with religion. It's to do with the political affiliation. These are political killings which have happened. So he tries to downplay the whole thing in a very, very diabolic fashion, I must
But
say.
if I were to try and understand the situation, Sheikh Hasina was firmly in control of Bangladesh, or so everyone felt. She won elections. Of course, the opposition did not participate. The army chief, General Wakaruzaman, is related to her somewhat.
Right.
And apparently, he advised her to leave the country and flee, and she fled to India. So, you in your readings have said that he did not play fair. Why do you have that impression?
Right. See, Sheikh Wakaruzaman, the army chief, had been assuring, which is there in the book, and which the Home Minister, during a subsequent interview with us, he also talked about that. The Bangladesh Home Minister in exile in India.
He incidentally has also been sentenced to death in absentia.
In absentia.
Found guilty along with Sheikh Hasina of
Right.
Asadud
Zaman Kamal.
Zaman Kamal. Yeah.
So he also he told us, and that is something that we knew also, that Wakaruzaman assured Sheikh Hasina that the army is going to take control of the situation, and is going to nothing is going to happen to her or the government. They will disperse the protesters. On the critical night of August 4th, the army was supposed to be out on the streets. He said the police, we don't require the police because the police have killed a number of protesters, and the police are a hated, force out there. So let the army come in, let the army be out on the streets, withdraw the police, and the army is going to control that. The moment people see the army, they are going to, quieten down, calm down, and they're going to go back to their homes. At a critical juncture, on the night of August 4th and the early morning of August 5th, the army played a silent bystander, looked the other way as lakhs and lakhs of people, or tens of thousands of people from even the neighboring areas, other parts of the country, they streamed into Dhaka. And they, then they started overrunning, government offices and all that. Ultimately, Gaurav Sawant, which is the residence of Sheikh Hasina. So he led Hasina up the garden path, assuring her that the army is in control, nothing is going to happen to her. And at the last moment, he was the one also who kept on telling her, please leave the country, otherwise your life is in danger.
Yeah, and that's how somehow she managed to get into that C-130 Hercules aircraft.
Right.
And once it was airborne, I'm told that's the time they reached out to India saying, give us permission to come into your country. That's what I have been told. Is that true?
India had actually already told them that, told Bangladesh that, you come in. In fact, very interesting, which is there again in the book, Blue by Blue account of what happened in the last few hours at Gaurav Sawant. Hasina had refused consistently to leave the country. She said, I'll die here. If they want to kill me, so be it, I'll die out here.
Sadly, that killed her family, more than
in
50 years.
75.
Yes, in 1975.
Absolutely. So she and people were very concerned. Her sister was there, Sheikh Rehana, and even her sister couldn't convince her. They made Joy, her son, call up from the US to ask his mom, prevail upon her to leave. She was still resisting, holding out. There was a critical phone call from India which says, you have to fight this battle some other day. Today, if you are there, you will not be able to fight the battle. Awami League will be gone. Your father's legacy will be gone. There will be nothing left to fight about. Your country, which you love so much, is going to be overtaken by forces which were pro-Pakistani forces, which your dad fought against. So all that will be gone. So you have to leave. And that made her, leave. Ultimately, I mean, she left at the 11th hour.
Yeah, virtually when the
when they were at the gates.
Islamists were at the gates.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely. And then when she was airborne from on the Hercules, that was the time they ultimately got into Gaurav Sawant and they went berserk, and they ransacked the whole place.
Yeah, I mean that picture of that radical Islamist holding her personal belongings.
Yes, I mean it was shameful.
That was shameful. Yeah, yeah.
Pathetic and shameful. I mean. No words to condemn that.
But now that she's been sentenced to death by a trial where she insists that she was not heard, given a lawyer of her choice, or able to give her side of the story, can she ever get back to Bangladesh? Is it endgame for her? Is Bangladesh completely in control of radical Islamists now?
I wouldn't say completely, but I would say yes. They're gaining ground by the day. It's going to be... things are going to get much worse because, you see the Awami League still retains, though the leadership has been forced out of the country and many are in prison, mostly on trumped up charges, on flimsy charges. But what is going to happen is it has about 40% of the electorate is pro-Awami League, right? They have been consistently voting for the Awami League in all elections. One. Two, these people in general are fed up of what has been happening in the country over the past more than a year now. In terms of price rise, unemployment has soared. There's law and order situation is bad. I mean, I hear my friends who are still there. They tell me on WhatsApp calls, on Telegram that the women folk are scared of going out of home Even in Dhaka, even in places like Gulshan and Dhanmondi, which are upscale areas, the women folk are scared of going out. They themselves are scared of going out after dark because they'll be looted and they'll be robbed and they'll be abducted and held for ransom, things like that. So people are fed up. Apart from the core Awami League voters, a large number of people who had maybe even had supported the so-called revolution, they are also fed up and they want change. But the Jamaat, which is well armed, is going to resist tooth and nail, and there's going to be a lot of fighting on the streets, bomb blasts, and all that. A lot of violence, a lot of blood will spill before. But I think ultimately, Sheikh Hasina, there's a good chance that Sheikh Hasina will ultimately get back to the country. There has to be another revolution in Bangladesh.
Okay, you think there may be another revolution, but right now, you think there will be elections in February 2026? The Awami League, Sheikh Hasina and her party, I mean, they're completely banned.
Yeah, there's likely to be election, but many countries and India has to play a huge role in this, be at the forefront of insisting, as we have been saying, but we should be more forceful in saying it and build up world opinion that elections have to be free, fair, and the operative term is inclusive. In the past, the world, I mean, many other countries rightly said when Sheikh Hasina conducted the elections and others did not take part, that elections have to be inclusive, and they were not inclusive. Now India should, be very loud in saying that elections have to be inclusive out there, and so but the whole game plan of if I may, just tell you, I feel the whole game plan of Yunus is to hold elections without the Awami League and not allow Tariq to come back, Khaleda Zia's son to come back. He hasn't come back all this while, because of the cases pending against him. And he will not be allowed to come back. So Khaleda Zia, an ailing lady, absolutely unwell, she will, the BNP is likely to win, and it will be forced into a compromise and an alliance with the Jamaat. And she will be the figurehead prime minister. Yunus will be the president, and a very powerful president with a lot of powers, and other roles other ministries, even a deputy prime minister, home minister, will be Jamaat people, who will again be the power, who will wield actual power.
So, in a way, in 1971, when India helped Bangladesh become independent, free itself from the clutches of radical Islamists, the same radical Islamists, their future generations, are now in control of Bangladesh.
Absolutely. The same Pakistan is back in control of Bangladesh.
The way Pakistani generals are visiting, from their chief of general staff to their ISI officers, the military exchanges that are happening, Navy to Navy exchanges that are happening. What does that mean for India in your view?
Very, very, concerning for India, because they're parking their submarines out there. They're sending their forces, and we may see a repeat of what had happened when the BNP and Jamaat were in power with Khaleda Zia as the prime minister. We all know, very well, that militant groups of the northeast, they were being harbored and sheltered and armed and trained in Bangladesh at that time by Pakistan's ISI. Though things have improved in the northeast and we don't have those militant groups any longer, but anyone can play mischief and foment trouble. There are lots of trouble points, as we all know. So I think it's going to be bad for India. They're setting up bases which are their target is the chicken's neck. The chicken, they call it the North Bengal, the Siliguri corridor, as we say, the entire belt which connects the northeast to the rest of India, that they see as a vulnerable point.
So, do you see a complicity between China, Pakistan, America, and Bangladesh against India in this region?
Absolutely. I do.
That's sinister.
Yes, it is.
And Indian intelligence agencies and our foreign office, were they aware of it? Should they not have sensitized Sheikh Hasina? Or was it too late to do anything?
We were very well aware of what was happening. I wouldn't agree to the to the assumption or to the analysis that we were caught completely unawares. No, we were not. We knew, and Sheikh Hasina was warned about it. But what happens? What you were talking about earlier, like she was thought to be completely in control. That's what happens to dictators, and she had become a sort of a dictator in Bangladesh without any opposition. uh, nothing at all. And winning elections, uncontested elections, had made her dictatorial. That is something that has to be considered. And we all know what happens to ultimately dictators. They don't listen to anyone. They think that they are invincible. She had thought that she was invincible, and she disregarded a lot of warnings from India. So it was not that we were called. We knew that this was happening, but there was little we could do because this is a sovereign country with Sheikh Hasina in control.
How long was this in the works? Because it started with paying rappers in Bangladesh to start singing rap songs. But can there be a revolution just on the basis of rap songs galvanizing students? Because all this appears to be very frivolous. What was the plotting and the planning like?
It started, I think, before the last 2024 elections in Bangladesh, or 2023, and which brought Hasina to power for the last time. It started before that. I mean, see, there was a time when, as we were talking about discussing St. Martin's Island, Hasina flatly refused access to America, to St. Martin's. Then America also wanted some of its own people in power. They wanted the BNP to be stronger. They wanted Jamaat to come up. For some reason, America believes that the deep state believes that the Jamaat and the BNP can be bought over by India, the Awami League and the BNP. But Jamaat is a force that will hold out, and it will be a troublesome spot for India. It can create trouble for India. So Jamaat can be our proxy in eastern part of India, now on the eastern border of India.
What does that mean now for us on our eastern flank? Frankly, there's a part of the India-Bangladesh border in Bengal that hasn't been fenced.
Right.
Some bits have been fenced. Some bits are too riverine to be fenced. Smuggling is a major cause of concern. Human trafficking and cattle smuggling. So what does that mean for us? And how does that help these radical Islamists in Bangladesh actually bleed us?
A porous border, a border that is completely porous. And unfortunately, the administration, I would say in Bengal, for instance, is helping this sort of, movement across the border. It's cattle and drugs and human trafficking now, but you never know when arms are coming in, when there's militants. And it has been proven, many militants have been caught in Bengal and in other parts of the country who have sneaked in through this porous border in Bangladesh. So until and unless the border is secured, this will keep on happening. And it's a very dangerous thing for the rest of the country, for the entire country, in fact.
It indeed is. Are we like almost sitting on a virtual time bomb? The manner in which infiltration from Bangladesh, terrorism from Bangladesh, weapons and explosive smuggling, fake currency, human trafficking from Bangladesh?
Absolutely. And I keep on saying this, that the Siliguri corridor is the target, and you have China, you have Pakistan, you have Bangladesh, all these countries eyeing that corridor. And I'll point out one more thing. Even elements within the country know about the vulnerability of the corridor and the demographic changes which have happened there, which, small point here, Sharjeel Imam also talked about it.
No, you're absolutely right. That indeed is very worrisome. We've seen 2017, the Doklam crisis, the Chinese troops moving forward directly threaten the Chicken's Neck area. Of course, India dominates them in the Chumbi Valley, but
Right.
that's a separate story. The fact that you have elements within your country like Sharjeel Imam talking about cutting India off at Chicken's Neck and isolating Assam. Now, for someone who is born and brought up in the Northeast, you studied in Shillong, I believe.
Right.
You worked in Shillong.
Right.
You traveled through Assam and reported from there. When you hear things like someone saying, cut off the chicken's neck, cut India off at Assam and cut off the entire Northeast, what goes through your mind?
First, alarm, then a lot of cold rage, because you're talking about my country, right? I mean, and that is completely unacceptable. Such elements should be considered to be within the country, they should be considered to be traitors. And the ones who are eyeing the chickens in a corridor, they should be taught a permanent lesson, I think. An exemplary lesson.
Well, let's hope as per law, action is taken against them, because as per law, Indians are not being protected across the border in Bangladesh. Look at the example of Chinmay Krishnadas, the Hindu monk,
Right.
who was put in jail and remains in jail. So he's not even getting justice from courts.
And for what? All that he did, all that he demanded was a representation, fair representation of Hindus in parliament, a ministry like we in India, we have a Ministry of Minority Affairs, a ministry for Hindus to look after the interests of the genuine interests of the Hindus, which was promised to Hindus in 1971. And also in 1947, by the way, under the Nehru Liaquat Pact. All that he was doing was asking for that. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing anti-national, anti-Bangladesh about it. And he's been prisoned just for, how dare you raise these sort of demands? How dare you talk about Hindus? How dare you say that Hindus should have proper representation?
So is Muhammad Yunus this very quiet, polite Nobel laureate, or is that just a facade? Behind the scenes, there are radical Islamists who run that country.
I see Muhammad Yunus as a mirror image of Jinnah. A pork-eating, wine-loving, alcohol-loving Muslim who is not even a Muslim, who doesn't practice Islam, really, which was Jinnah and which is Yunus. But both.
Yunus is a pork-eating Muslim, you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yunus has lived a large part of his life in Europe. He is very close to a lot of people. He has married Europeans, and it's well-known fact. He's a pork-eating and alcohol-consuming Muslim. Who doesn't, offer namaz, who barely offers namaz. I mean, he doesn't even know, if you have seen visuals of him offering namaz, now that he's the head of, the de facto head of Bangladesh, the way he offers namaz, he will make out that it's alien to him. He's not used to offering namaz,
So, Jaideep, tell me this, Bengal is a cradle for change. There's so much about education and literacy and culture and art and music. But what we perceive about Bangladesh is just the opposite. Always, students in rage, radical Islamists running the country, factories are shut down, paucity of electricity, and they seem to be going down the Pakistan way.
Absolutely.
Is that true? Is that the case?
Yeah. For them now, as my co-author Deep says, it's a time that the Bangladesh youth have to choose who's your role model. India, which is, despite odds progressing so well, or is it Pakistan, which is a client state of many countries, of the US and China? There is, I would go back a bit, and I would say in 71, when the country was formed, the poisonous elements remained. Sheikh Mujib's big failing was that he did not root out completely all the Razakars, all the Pakistani elements or pro-Pakistani elements who were there. And these, over a period of time, within a few years, 4 years, 3 years,
They killed him.
And
his family.
And his family.
Sheikh Hasina is lucky she wasn't in the country.
She was in the country. So, since he failed to do that, these people have become more and more and more and more powerful. That's why I say the spirit of 1971 is now in danger.
Because they're erasing Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's
legacy,
statues, legacies, burning down his home, burning down his photographs.
Yeah, and rewriting the history, rewriting everything, so that it becomes another Pakistan once again.
So it could
undo 1971, undo the liberation.
So there's an Operation Erase that's currently underway to erase Sheikh Mujib and undo the partition, undo the freedom that they got in 1971.
Absolutely. It won't be by nomenclature East Pakistan, but for all practical purposes, that's what they want. But as I said, there's a lot of resistance to that. There will be resistance.
Will there be that resistance? Will it be visible? Will they be able to fight forces, these radical Islamist terror forces that are firmly entrenched in Bangladesh remains to be seen, and that's a story we're tracking very closely. Jaideep Mazumdar, for joining me here on this Chakravyuh podcast. Many
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
Cheers.